Well, if you're like me, you care about your car, but you're not the biggest fan of having to get work done on your car. This is where Roda comes in. Roda is a DMV-based auto shop that makes taking care of your car so easy, it feels like magic. Roda has a team of best-in-the-business technicians who can service any make and model across any maintenance or repairs and detailing. With over 1,000 Google reviews, Best Auto Shop on Yelp, and Nextdoor awards, your neighbors are loving Roda, and you will too. Roda is tremendous. You can book any car service online in under 3 minutes. Roda offers free towing or valet. Roda literally will pick up your car and bring it to the shop in Rockville, Maryland, service the car, and return it to you. Over 80% of Roda services are done on the same day on which they're booked. Roda offers price matching, honest flat pricing, and financing. Roda offers free inspections on your car and shares everything found via video and pictures. Drivers approve only what they want to. Visit Roda.com, that's RODA.com, and use the promo code GALDI20 for 20% off any service. That's Roda.com, promo code GALDI20 for 20% off any service.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
And away we go, episode 1169 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, October 3rd, 2025, and the Commanders are in Cali. They, after practicing on Thursday afternoon, flew to California. They on Friday are practicing at the historic Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and they on Sunday afternoon at 4:25 Eastern are playing a game against the Los Angeles Chargers at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Plenty of connections between the Commanders franchise and the Chargers franchise, even though the two franchises are thousands of miles apart and rarely play. But how about the Bobby Beathard connection? Bobby Beathard, greatest executive in Washington, D.C. sports history, and there really isn't much of a debate. He was the Redskins general manager February 1978 until May 1989. He was the San Diego Chargers GM January 1990 to April 2000. So 11 plus years as the Skins GM and 10 plus years as the Chargers GM. How about the Norv Turner and Marty Schottenheimer connections in a period of less than a decade? Each guy served as the head coach for each team, the Skins and Chargers. And there are plenty of other connections. I don't know that any of this means anything for Sunday, but I do find this stuff interesting. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Coming up on the show, in-depth preview of Commanders at the Chargers. Next segment, the latest on quarterback Jayden Daniels, other Commanders players who've been dealing with injury, and key Chargers players dealing with injury. A lot to go through. It is looking like the Commanders will get back Daniels, but the team already is ruled out 3 key players. Also during the segment, we'll discuss key comments from offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury and defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. on Thursday. Some really good stuff from Whitt on a struggling defense off what went down in the 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons this past Sunday afternoon. The following segment, a deep dive on what the Commanders are facing in the Chargers, as we'll speak with Steven Haglun, co-host of the Guilty as Charged podcast, which is a big-time Chargers podcast. And then the segment after that, my rhyming key keys for a Commanders win at the Chargers and my prediction for the game. And also on the show, college football, Goldilocks for the FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region for Week 6 of the 2025 season, and thoughts on significant games for Maryland, Navy, and Virginia, and significant news for Virginia Tech. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Kim on Jayden Daniels. Writes Kim, "Hi Al. I don't know, but I think there are a good number of us who have a worry beyond our control about JD5's physical well-being. He continues to be a slightly built quarterback who, by his very nature, gets hit a lot either by being a runner or just after releasing the ball. He supposedly has added muscle, but to me, looks pretty thin. This may continue to plague him until, or unless, he beefs up some." Thank you for the email, Kim. We talked about this some on Thursday's show, episode 1168. There is a very fine line to walk. Jayden Daniels is an elite runner as an NFL quarterback. You want him taking advantage of that. But yeah, you also want him to lessen the contact that he's taking. I like the point that head coach Dan Quinn made during his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon. Quote, "Jayden's still growing too." End quote. Jayden's still growing too. He is, and hopefully he becomes more savvy at excelling as a runner while also lessening the contact that he takes. But that's not easy to do, and we probably need to get used to the fact that he, as an ultra-mobile quarterback, is going to take some hits. That's how it is with pretty much all ultra-mobile NFL quarterbacks. Email from Redskins fan on the Commanders not going with more running plays. Writes Redskins fan, "Hey Al, the Commanders have an identity. It's running the ball. So why aren't they getting behind running the ball? The running game helps both the offense and the defense. The running game also helps out the pass game. Once the running game gets going, it will take pressure off the passing game. Then maybe the passing game can get going and the defense can rest. And maybe we play with the lead, which will make the opponents one-dimensional." Just a thought. Another thought is, what do coaches like Jim Harbaugh do to turn their teams around fast? Run the ball. Less pressure on quarterbacks. I'll wait and see and just try to enjoy the ride. Thank you for the email, Redskins fan. The Commanders' offensive identity last season was not running the ball. Remember, the running game in terms of running backs was terrible as last season went on. The Commanders' offensive identity last season was Jayden Daniels. Okay, that was the team's identity last season. Jayden Daniels is both a passer and a runner. But to Redskins fans' point, I do want to see more carries for running backs Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt and Chris Rodriguez Jr. Krosky-Merritt and Rodriguez in the loss at the Falcons combined for 14 carries for 106 yards. The running game was working. Couldn't we have seen more of it? Why didn't we see more of it? And specific to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, specific to Bill, he for this regular season through Week 4 was number 1 among all qualified NFL running backs in rushing grade for Pro Football Focus, 90.6, was number 2 among all qualified players in the NFL in yards per carry, 5.93, and was number 3 among all qualified NFL running backs in rushing yards over expected per attempt per the NFL's next-gen stats, 1.71. That he has just 29 carries over 4 games doesn't make much sense. Email from Devin, who attended the Commanders' loss at the Falcons. Subject, Festivus Fridays. Writes Devin, "Al, the airing of grievances. The only thing less enjoyable than sitting in traffic driving home from the Redskins-Falcons game was watching the Falcons receivers run wide open in the Redskins secondary. Maybe Kliff Kingsbury should hire the Nace Law Group because the offense has been wronged by the defense. Dan Quinn's postgame press conference should have sounded like this. Marshawn Lattimore has to go. We need to put a different quarterback into that space. He hasn't been hitting the marks, and that's not how we get down. It's affecting our brotherhood." The Falcon Stadium is awesome. The drive from our house in North Carolina is about the same distance to the Redskin Stadium or the Falcon Stadium. I would rather go to the Falcon Stadium. It seemed like half of the fans were Redskins fans, and the Falcons fans were great to be around. We didn't see anyone fighting in the stands or acting drunk. People were drinking and having a good time, but everyone was friendly and joking around with one another. I hope the new Redskin Stadium will be as enjoyable to go to as the Falcon Stadium. Thank you for the email, Devin. Yes, people getting drunk, people acting in a not-so-nice way. That has been a problem at FedEx Field/Northwest Stadium over the years. I will never forget HBO's Real Sports in an episode that debuted in January 2008, doing a piece on whether drinking at NFL games had gotten out of control. And it seemed like half of the footage of drunk fans at NFL games was of fans at FedEx Field. I'm serious. So much of the footage was of drunk fans at FedEx Field. Although I do believe that the piece also included a highlighting of the Dead Tree Crew. A shout out to the Dead Tree Crew, the DTC, a legendary tailgate group at FedEx Field. Is the Dead Tree Crew still in effect? I don't know. I hope so. I do know this. Yes, if Kliff Kingsbury has been wronged by the Commanders' defense, then he should contact the Nace Law Group Accident and Injury Lawyers. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group Accident and Injury Lawyers and mention that Al Galdi sent you. You could call 202-902-7611. You could also visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and submit for a free no-obligation case review. The Nace Law Group features compassionate lawyers and zealous advocates for its clients, led by the great Chris Nace and founded in 1979. The Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. It will fight for you and your family. The Nace Law Group can help you and your family make difficult decisions. The Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. Hey, a few things that you could do to support this podcast, and these are things that cost nothing and take very little time. First of all, you on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. The highest rating is a 5-star rating. It is greatly appreciated if you give the podcast a 5-star rating, and it is also greatly appreciated if you write like a 1 or 2 sentence review saying that you like the podcast. Also, following the podcast is a big help. If you have an iPhone, following the podcast is as simple as clicking on the word follow next to a plus sign near the top right of your screen. Thank you for doing these things. They help to make the podcast a success, and thank you for listening to the podcast. Week 5 of the NFL's 2025 regular season gives us the 2-2 Commanders at the 3-1 Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. The Commanders' injury report for Thursday afternoon's practice. Brace yourself. This report is lengthy. On offense, quarterback Jayden Daniels was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day and appears to very much be on track to return from a 2-game absence caused by a left knee injury. Tight end John Bates, he was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day and appears to very much be on track to return from a 2-game absence caused by groin and calf injuries. But receivers Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown and right guard Samuel Cosmi all already have been ruled out for the game. The team in a post on X on Thursday evening at 5 had the following in releasing the injury report, quote, WR, Terry McLaurin, WR, Noah Brown, and G, Sam Cosmi are not traveling with the team to Los Angeles today and are ruled out for Sunday's game, end quote. Unfortunate news, but not surprising news. McLaurin and Brown, each guy on Thursday afternoon, did not practice for a second consecutive day. McLaurin will miss a second consecutive game due to a quadriceps injury. Brown will miss a third consecutive game due to groin and knee injuries. And Cosmi, who on Thursday afternoon was a full participant in practice for a second consecutive day, remains on the reserve/physically unable to perform list. This due to a torn right ACL. The Commanders on Wednesday at noon did announce that they had opened opened the 21-day practice window for Cosmi. More bad news. Receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., he on Thursday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day, this due to a heel ailment. And tight end Colson Yankoff, he on Thursday afternoon was a full participant in practice, but was on the injury report due to an ankle. He was not listed on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. On defense, cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, he on Thursday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day, this due to a knee issue. Interior defensive lineman Daron Payne was a limited participant in Thursday afternoon's practice due to a knee problem. He was not listed on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Safety Percy Butler, he on Thursday afternoon was a limited participant in practice for a second consecutive day. He did not play in the 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons this past Sunday afternoon due to a hip injury. Edge defender Dorrance Armstrong, he on Thursday afternoon was a full participant in practice. He did not practice on Wednesday afternoon due to illness. Linebacker Ale Cajo, he on Thursday afternoon was a limited participant in practice. He did not practice on Wednesday afternoon due to a concussion. Linebacker and special teams ace Nick Bellore, he on Thursday afternoon was a full participant in practice, but he's on the injury report due to a quad. He did not practice on Wednesday afternoon, but that was due to rest. Got all of that. 13 Commanders players were on the team's injury report for Thursday afternoon's practice. For the Chargers, the big injury item with them is their offensive line. The Chargers' number one left tackle, Rashawn Slater, he suffered a season-ending torn patellar tendon this past August during a training camp practice. The team's number one right tackle, Joe Alt, moved to left tackle, but he on Thursday afternoon did not practice for a second consecutive day, and per head coach Jim Harbaugh on Wednesday afternoon was doubtful to play this Sunday. Alt suffered an ankle injury in the Chargers' 21-18 loss at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon. Also, right guard Mekhi Becton, he on Thursday afternoon was a limited participant in practice for a second consecutive day. He missed the loss at the Giants due to a concussion. But yes, it is looking like Jayden Daniels is going to play this Sunday. Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, he did a post-practice press conference on Thursday afternoon. We, during that presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Kingsbury.
Obviously, Marcus went in there, did a good job for you and all that, but when Jayden comes back, what kind of lift does he give this offense?
Yeah, I mean, Marcus, I think in the 4 times he's played about as well as you can play. He's scored on, I believe, 70% of our drives. We've scored points, which is unheard of. So they're different styles, and Jayden is a unique talent. Like the way he plays, moves, throws. I mean, he's generational, and so anytime you get him back out there, it's going to lift up your team.
Well, how about that from Kliff Kingsbury on Jayden Daniels, quote, he's generational, end quote. Also coming up during the Kliff Kingsbury post-practice press conference on Thursday afternoon was this issue of Jayden Daniels needing to balance being an elite runner as an NFL quarterback with minimizing the contact that he takes. We on Thursday afternoon had this back and forth with Kliff Kingsbury.
Kliff, when you have a quarterback like Jayden, who's obviously not afraid to play outside of the pocket and he's coming off an injury, are there things that you can do to sort of hold him back a little bit to protect him, or would that just take away too much of what makes him special?
Yeah, no. I think that's really why we were overly cautious with him, because we didn't want to put him out there until he can be Jayden, and that's what he's going to be, and that's how he's going to play.
Do you think when it comes to a quarterback like him that the ability to protect himself is something that's just instinctive, or that's something he can be taught and learned over time?
Yeah, it's instinctive. I mean, guys like him and Kyler, who's an undersized player that I was with in Arizona, I mean, they play that way their entire life. They always, in Jayden's case, been a little slimmer than the other guys, and Kyler's a little smaller, and they know how to protect themselves, and they know where to find the soft spot, and they've played that way their entire lives, and so it's like 10,000 hours put into it.
Yeah, and Kliff Kingsbury is right with what he said there. And notable that he admitted that the team was, quote, overly cautious, end quote, with Jayden Daniels. The team wants him to be able to play the way that he plays. Meantime, Commanders defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., he did a pre-practice press conference late Thursday morning. He, as is usually the case, had a lot to say. And as is usually the case, what he said was detailed and interesting. I like listening to Whitt. He's a very good communicator. And yet, there has been bad communication with his defense, right? The Commanders' defense was hideous in the team's loss at the Falcons, just as the defense was hideous in the 27-18 loss at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football football on September 11th, although the Commanders' defense was good in the team's 2 wins this regular season, but those 2 opposing offenses not exactly elite. The 21-6 win over the New York Giants at Northwest Stadium on September 7th, and the 41-24 win over the Las Vegas Raiders at Northwest Stadium on September 21st. This was Joe Whitt during the opening statement of his presser on Thursday morning.
All right, let's get going. So, as normal, I'll talk a little bit about the last game, a little bit about the first quarter of the season, and then get into the next game and then answer any questions that you have. The first quarter, it hasn't been consistent. We go out and play well against the Giants, then we don't play well against the Packers. I'm talking about defensively. Come out and run and hit and do what we need to do against the Raiders, and then we go down to Atlanta, and once again, so we can't have this ebbs and flows. We have to get into a rhythm of playing as one, and that's what I told the team. Okay, and when I say playing as one, what do I mean by that? It's 3 different things, especially coming from the Atlanta game. The number one thing is the communication. Okay, pre and post snap. We don't need anybody to put capes on. That's what happened a little bit in the Atlanta game, and I will explain that. And then the gang tackling as a unit, the turnbacks that we talked about, that we had a number of them against the Raiders. We didn't have them in this game, and we missed tackles. And so when I talk about the communication and playing as one and no capes, let's talk about like the first third down of the game. It's a look that we knew that was coming. Is actually the play that we worked. They ran the play that we worked. We call them looks to own. And so they ran the fast motion over, option away from 3 with a 7. And we had one guy that got a little greedy, but it wasn't his play to make. He should have been on the vertical, and the vertical was open. And so we don't need anybody to put capes on, all right? That play was for Oos to make, and Oos was working to it, but it was wide open. So, the communication and understanding, we don't have to put a cape on that. You just do your job. The gang tackling, all right, the one of the touchdowns by Bijan, okay? If you look at that play right there, we had one guy come in, and he shot at the ball, trying to knock the ball out. But our rule is you shoot at the ball when it's in the leverage arm that you're at, okay? And so then the second guy came in, and he shot at the ball. If you're the second guy in, you shoot at the ball when the tackle is secure. So the technique of both of those weren't there, and so it allowed Bijan to keep running. It caused 2 missed tackles and a third as he went into the end zone. And so communication pre and post snap, and then we don't have to put capes on, just do our job. And so the negative plays and the open plays are putting a stain on the positive things that we have done on defense. But the main thing is to win, and we're not winning, and we're not we didn't win the last game, and we're not playing the brand of football that we want to play defensively, and so we have to get that taken care of, and we will.
All right, so some very detailed analysis from Joe Whitt right there on what's going on with his defense. The culprit on the first third down of the loss at the Falcons, the 26-yard reception by tight end Kyle Pitts Sr. on a 3rd and 5 was cornerback Trey Amos. The culprits on the 14-yard touchdown run by running back Bijan Robinson with 8:27 left in the second quarter in terms of the missed tackles were safety Jeremy Reeves and cornerback Mikey St-Juste. Amos, Reeves, and St-Juste, 3 guys who get a lot of praise, but they are parts of the bad defense, which mostly is about the secondary. The defensive linemen and linebackers are mostly playing well. In fact, Joe Whitt on Thursday morning made it a point to say that the one Commanders defensive player who played well in the loss at the Falcons was linebacker Frankie Louvu. Here you go.
Frankie played really well. He's the one guy that played well in this game.
Yeah, Frankie Louvu, according to Joe Whitt, the one Commanders defensive player who played well in the loss at the Falcons. We, on Wednesday's show, episode 1167, had a lengthy conversation with Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room on Substack on the struggles of and potential changes for the Commanders defense. And one of my biggest takeaways from that conversation was that, according to Mark, the struggles are a lot more about the players than about what Joe Whitt is calling. These players just need to perform better. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Donna Hopkins of Pro Football Plus and Joe Whitt.
Talking to some of the players, they said that they have to stay on their keys. What are some of the little things that are so important in moving this defense forward?
Well, and that goes back to, like I said, the pre and post snap communication and the no capes. Okay, so I went back and I showed them the first 4 plays of the Giants game. Okay, and you had Kinlaw's tackle, you had Payne coming out on the screen. Then the 4th play was they ran fast motion, and you saw Mikey communicating before the snap. You saw Will on the backside communicating and coming out. So pre-snap communication provides great post-snap play, and we didn't have enough of that here. And it seemed like we were playing more as individuals than as a collective unit in the last game, and so we got to get back to playing like we did, communicating like we did, and when we do that, it provides better play for the whole defense.
Joe Whitt, quote, "Pre-snap communication provides great post-snap play," end quote. That's a good mantra. Hopefully the Commanders actually abide by that in this game at the Chargers this Sunday. Also from Whitt on Thursday morning was him saying that he does believe that what Commanders defensive players see written about them on social media affects them. And he didn't say this as a means of asking for sympathy or mercy for his players. He said this more matter-of-factly, and that the players need to ignore and or rise above the criticism. But it was interesting to hear him get into this. We on Thursday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider David Harrison of SI.com and Joe Whitt.
You talked before about like just in the life of football, some people when things aren't going well can tend to kind of start to overwork and maybe put too much focus into trying to sort this and that out and make it almost too complicated. How do you make sure that you and your staff aren't doing that? And then also, how do you communicate to the players the need to not do that as well?
Yeah, first thing, it's a fun game because it's hard. You know what I'm saying? And so, and we're in it because we like the challenge. And so that's the one thing that we really talk. You don't have to over try. You don't necessarily panic in any situation when you get in situations and when you're not playing it exactly like you want to play it. Now, what do? You go and you look at it. Has the approach been the right approach? What can you do differently? How can you change the learning? When you're not getting the results that you want, we're not going to just necessarily keep on doing the same thing, but we're going to look at every possible way of teaching the men, training the men, and then getting on the field and getting it done from that standpoint. But in this society and how things are now, and the guys, especially these guys that grew up in different than when we grew up, where they're in the social media and they read everything that everybody writes, it weighs on them. When you're my age, 47, or when you didn't grow up in that environment, I don't look. So whatever people are saying about me, that's cool. I don't care because I don't see it. But they really look at it and it weighs on them, and so. Then they start to try to overtry. So that's one thing Q and I have talked about. How do we, not just the defense, but these young men in general, how do you keep them, grounded from the standpoint of blocking out the noise, because good or bad is not real, And so, and it's people that don't know the individuals or what's going on in some spots. And so that's what we got to do is block out the noise and go play well. I've told players before, if you want people to say positive things, play positive. If I want to have people say positive things about me, I need to put a positive product out on the field. So hopefully that answers your question from that standpoint.
Yeah, I appreciated Joe Whitt's answer right there. There is so much to social media behavior, right? So much of it is nasty and low IQ and cowardly. Like, people say things on social media that these people would never say to a person's face. And so often, these people don't even have the guts to use their real names or use photos of themselves on their profile pages. What would be best for these Commanders defensive players impacted by social media would be for them to not be on social media, but of course, that's easier said than done. And so if these players are going to remain on social media and see the criticism, then they need to not let themselves be impacted by the criticism. This is big-time pro sports. You got to be mentally tough. And again, that's easier said than done, but the NFL will eat you alive if you let what Captain Commander 21 on X says about you impact you, especially when you consider that Captain Commander 21 on X might be some 15-year-old who's trolling you and isn't even a fan of the team, or might be some 38-year-old who has no friends or companionship or whatever. Like, you got to consider the source. There are a lot of miserable, damaged people on social media. Now, there are some very good people on social media. There are some very smart people on social media. There are some very funny people on social media. But there are a lot of miserable, damaged people on social media, and it would be good for these Commanders defensive players impacted by social media to be aware of that and rise above the criticism. And like Joe Whitt said, play better so that there is no criticism.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed-sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed-sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The second of 4 games for the Commanders against the AFC West in the NFL's 2025 regular season is this Sunday. The 2-2 Commanders at the 3-1 Los Angeles Chargers Sunday afternoon at 4:25. The Chargers' 4 games this regular season: a 27-21 win over the Kansas City Chiefs in Brazil on September 5th, a 29 win at the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football on September 15th, a 23-20 home win over the Denver Broncos on September 21st, and a 21-18 loss at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon. For insight on the Chargers, I'm very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Steven Haglun, co-host of the Guilty as Charged podcast, which is a very successful Chargers podcast. You could follow Steven on X at Steven I. Haglund. Haglund is spelled Haglund. Hey, Steven, how are you?
Doing great. It's a bummer the Chargers and Commanders don't play each other more often, because I always enjoy hopping on here with you and excited to talk about Chargers Commanders.
I appreciate that very much. So the Commanders last Sunday afternoon had their disappointing 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons, and the Chargers last Sunday afternoon had their disappointing loss at the Giants. What went wrong for the Chargers in that game?
Yeah, I think primarily I'll start with the defense there, because that was a bigger concern for me based off of like what I watched on tape, where, you know, Brian Daboll headed into the game and was like, yeah, we're going to use Jackson Dart's legs. And then the Chargers defense looked completely unprepared for that aspect of the Commanders run game. It seemed like to me they were still coaching a Giants team that was led by Russell Wilson. And then the Giants just gladly took, you know, the 4 yards per carry. And it wasn't an amazing day by Jackson Dart throwing the football, but he didn't really have to. He made 2 or 3 good throws, and that was enough for the offense. They had a couple of short fields. But I was just really disappointed in the approach on defense, where they essentially just let the Giants, march down the field at any drive that they wanted to. They kind of struggled to stop the run. And, the Chargers love to play with these light boxes, in part because, they have Derwin James, who they feel like can kind of, overcompensate for that. But it just did not work out. And Cam Scatterbo, Jackson Dart just kind of, led the Giants on a few drives, 5-6 yards a carry, and that was enough for the Giants to win the game.
The Chargers in this regular season have yet to allow more than 21 points in a game, and through week 4 ranked number 3 in the NFL in total defense in terms of lowest expected points added allowed per play per RBSDM.com. Overall, how is the Chargers defense doing?
The defense is doing really well when they're, I think when they force opposing teams into obvious passing situations, their schematic, coverage board is pretty diverse, and they get to different cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 6 looks in a diverse way. Derwin James is obviously perceived as this great safety, but he plays primarily in the slot for them. And so they allow him to be really close to the football, and it works in that way. So if you want to take advantage of the Chargers defense, I think the way to do it is a lot of the RPO quarterback run game stuff that the Giants did, where you are essentially getting an extra blocker. Granted, Cam Scatterbo is kind of like essentially a fullback, and he'll take on any blocking assignment that the Giants were asking of him. But when it comes to defending the pass, they're second in EPA per dropback right now, because they just make things look so differently after the snap than they do pre-snap. And then they have, Derwin James, Tuli Tuipulotu, their main edge rusher right now, without Khalil Mack, who are out there causing havoc as pass rushers as well.
The Chargers defensive coordinator is Jesse Minter, was hired for that job in February 2024. He's 42, is viewed as a potential NFL head coach. What do you think of Minter?
Overall, I've been very happy with him. Last year, the Chargers didn't really have a ton of defensive talent. Obviously, you have Derwin James and Khalil Mack last year. You didn't really know what you had with Tuli Tuipulotu. He emerged throughout the season. Joey Bosa was hurt, obviously, as he usually is. Dan Henley turned into a star player. So entering the season, the expectations were very low. Entering last season, I should say, the expectations were low, and they were about, the 8th or 10th best defense, excuse me. And so we're really happy with where the defense is at from a coaching standpoint. Things are communicated really, really well. The coverage menu, again, is really diverse, and it works. The run defense is about average. The Giants, again, did enough to kind of take advantage of that, and we'll see if the Commanders do. But overall, very happy. The Chargers have invested a lot of resources on offense, not a lot on defense, and Jesse Minter is making do.
If I may ask, our old pal, former Washington cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, who this past March signed with the Chargers as an unrestricted free agent. I know that he's not a starter for the Chargers, but how's he doing?
Yeah, they're really limiting his responsibilities. They like to press him a lot, so they will use his size advantage. And when he is on the field, they're almost always running cover 3. So they're not asking him to play man covers. They're not asking him to carry deep overs or anything like that. He almost always is against the X receiver. So it's a very simplified responsibility for him, where they're using his size advantage. He's had a couple forced incompletions. He had a pass breakup on Sunday. But we'll see what happens if he ever has to play meaningful snaps for this team, because it didn't look great in the preseason, to be completely honest with you. But he's their 4th corner, and he'll play 10, 15 snaps a game, and I think that works for his skill set.
The Chargers' Justin Herbert, he for this regular season through week 4 was number 12 among all qualified NFL quarterbacks in ESPN's total QBR, 63.8. How's his season going?
Up until Sunday, he looked like a bona fide MVP candidate. And I think the biggest difference is that he's using his legs a lot more often. Up until this past Sunday, he was, was averaging about 4.5 scrambles per game, which isn't a ton in comparison to like Jayden Daniels, for example. But that's a big difference from where he was at, where his previous career high was about 1.88 per game. So he's scrambling a lot more this season. You know, his arm has always been extremely talented. But the offensive line in front of him got absolutely wrecked. And obviously Joe Alt's injury is a key factor there. But the first 3 games, he looked like a legitimate MVP candidate, really taking a step forward within the offense. And Jim Harbaugh's bringing more personality out of him, I think, just becoming a bit more of a vocal leader as well, which has been good to see.
This is Justin Herbert's 6th NFL season. The Chargers took him with the number 6 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft out of the University of Oregon. He is a true franchise quarterback, no doubt, but it's crazy what happened with him last season. Herbert in the 2024 regular season threw just 3 interceptions, but in the Chargers' 32-12 loss at the Houston Texans this past January 11th in the wildcard round of the NFL playoffs, threw 4 interceptions. Herbert in that one game threw more interceptions than he threw in all of the 2024 regular season. Makes no sense, and yet that happened. Is lack of playoff success the big knock on Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, he's one of the better quarterbacks, through the first 5 seasons in NFL history. Obviously won the Rookie of the Year award. In his second season, I thought if the Chargers had made the playoffs, he had like a legit case for, being a dark horse MVP contender, but they did not. The situation around him has not, I don't want to make a ton of excuses, but, he came into the league with one of the worst offensive lines in the league. Brandon Staley, one of the worst head coaches in the league for the next few years. So I think the team is catching up around him. But I understand the gig here. He has to perform well in playoff scenarios going forward. He has to perform better in big games. And I think this season he's off to a good start, obviously beating the Chiefs week 1, beating the Broncos in week 3 in that comeback fashion, big win. So he definitely has to get that playoff monkey off his back. But I think, if you're watching him and evaluating him, like worst case scenario for me is he's like the 7th best quarterback in the league, just from a pure production standpoint. But yeah, man, he picked a bad time last year to have his worst game of the season against Houston in the playoff game. So I understand how that part works for sure.
How would you describe Justin Herbert's current offensive supporting cast?
They did a really great job of adding more weapons to the group last year. It was basically Ladd McConkey and then like an occasional Quentin Johnson game. Quentin Johnson this year looks like a completely different player and is, I think, 3rd in the league in receiving yards right now. Just super comfortable in his role. Ladd is still holding it down. Keenan Allen coming back looks great. They have 2 pass-catching tight ends this year, Tyler Conklin and Rondé Gadsden. Neither of them are going to like light up the world by any means, but they're capable pass-catching tight ends, which they just didn't really have last year. And then, Najee Harris blew out his Achilles and he had the firework thing. But I think they approached that running back position really, really well by drafting Amari Hampton, bringing in Najee Harris. And Hampton has looked awesome through 4 games. So there's a lot to like from a weapon standpoint. Unfortunately, the offensive line is just beat to hell right now. They lost Rashawn Slater for the season in training camp. Joe Alt is dealing with a high ankle sprain. Mekhi Becton has missed this past week because of a concussion, and that's their 3 best blockers. So it's a tough situation from an offensive line standpoint. I think Mekhi Becton should be back this week, but no Slater, no Alt. Like that's a tough thing to overcome for any team.
Much more with Steven Haglund in moments, but if you enjoyed this podcast, check out BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com. BGO Blind Pig is great. It is a roundtable discussion of the Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Commanders fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. The latest episode has some really good conversation regarding this Commanders game at the Chargers. Make BGObsession.com, the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Commanders podcast rotation. We're previewing Commanders at the Chargers with Steven Haglun, co-host of the Guilty as Charged podcast, which is a popular Chargers podcast. The Chargers offensive coordinator is Greg Roman, was hired for that job in February 2024. Also has been an NFL offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, Buffalo Bills, and Baltimore Ravens. He is known for masterminding great rushing offenses. His passing offenses, maybe not as much. Is Steven Haglund a fan of Greg Roman?
I'm a fan of certain parts of it. The run game schematics look fantastic, and that's always been what he is known for. I think he deserves a lot of credit for coming out this season and throwing the football a lot more on early downs. But the passing schematics to me are just like, they're really stuck from the Stanford days. There's just not a lot of, route diversity going on. They love mesh. They'll run mesh, probably 15 times a game, different variations of it. They'll do a lot of like play action, deep shot with a bunch of overs. There's really like 4 or 5 passing plays that they run. So I don't think it's the best situation for Justin Herbert where he can, handle a very diverse, passing game. So I would say he's like a B or a B- offensive coordinator in the league, and they have enough elsewhere where it doesn't matter a ton. But if they lose like Jesse Minter in the offseason next year and Greg Roman is their better coordinator, then the Chargers might be in a little bit of a tough situation.
All things considered with the Chargers, what are the biggest concerns with them this season?
Right now, the biggest concern is the tackle situation. Joe Alt, we don't know exactly how many weeks he's going to miss. Adam Schefter made it seem like maybe 2 or 3. Ian Rappaport made it seem like 4 to 6. So we don't know what that's like. Right now they're on their third left tackle named Austin Deculus, who they traded for the last week of the preseason from the Texans. So their tackle situation is not great. I think the rest of the roster is in good shape. Edge rusher wise, they could really use a third pass rusher for when Khalil Mack comes back. But Tuli Tuipulotu looks like a rising star. I have full confidence in Khalil when he comes back. But that third edge rusher spot is a real weakness. And they signed Cleveland Farrell to the practice squad a couple weeks ago to try and maybe see if there's anything there. But they haven't elevated him yet. So we'll see what happens there. But tackle, edge 3, I think those are the biggest concerns right now.
Yeah, Cleveland Farrell was on the Commanders last season, but they this past August 26th, and they're cut down to 53, announced having released Farrell. The Chargers head coach, Jim Harbaugh, was hired for the job in January 2024. His track record as a head coach is outstanding. University of San Diego, Stanford, San Francisco 49ers, University of Michigan, now the Los Angeles Chargers. He's been successful at each stop. He in his first season as Chargers head coach went 11-6 in the regular season and made the playoffs. He seems like exactly what the Chargers needed in a head coach.
There are definitely some things that I wish were a little bit more modern with the Jim Harbaugh approach. Like, he's still very conservative on fourth down. They're still very conservative in overall like game management situation. They do not have like a data analyst who helps with clock management. And that has shown up several times throughout the last, 20 games. And luckily it hasn't cost them a game. But those are areas where I wish were different. But, like you mentioned, it wasn't just coming off the Brandon Staley era. The Chargers have not had a true like leader of a coach since Marty Schottenheimer when I was in middle school. And I'm 32 years old. So it's been a long time since they've had a real adult in the room, and I think Jim Harbaugh has really just brought a level of competitiveness and toughness to this franchise that has been severely lacking throughout the bulk of my life as a fan.
I'm big on analytics, so I have to tell you, I was so rooting for Brandon Staley, a big analytics person, to do well as Chargers head coach. He had some success, but things ultimately did not work out. If you could combine Staley's forward thinking with Jim Harbaugh's leadership and toughness, you'd have a heck of a head coach. It seems like each guy's biggest strength is the other guy's biggest weakness.
Yeah, that is absolutely accurate. So in week 1 against the Chiefs, they had a situation where they got the ball back with like a minute and 50 seconds left. And they just did not execute that drive well. Amari and Hampton, so they get down into the red zone. They have like it was first and goal, or not first and goal. It was like 1st and 10 from the 18-yard line. Justin Herbert takes a sack, and instead of like calling a timeout to try and get a good play in, they just let them kind of do like a little hurry up situation. They tried to sub. It was late. It was a delay of game, and then the clock stops, and you don't have another good play. Then it was an incomplete pass after that. And then on 3rd down, they had an outside run for Amari and Hampton, and he ran out of bounds. And so they kicked a field goal. The Chiefs had about 45 seconds left to go down and potentially go kick a field goal. And at that time, it was 13-3. And so instead of taking a 13-3 lead into halftime, they let the Chiefs go back down, kick a field goal, and it's 13-6. And they won the game, so it wasn't like a huge deal. But just the situations like that where they're not managing clock properly is a big thing. This past Sunday against the Giants, they had another time where late in the second half, there was about 5 minutes left. They were about to punt. The punt team took the whole play clock down to the 1, and then they punted, and then the Giants wasted the rest of the clock out. Chargers did not get the ball back, and then the Giants got the ball to start the second half. And it's like, well, if you manage that situation differently, you maybe steal a possession here or there. And so it's just stuff like that where clock management analytics, I think, helps, that the Chargers are not really getting the beneficiary of right now because they don't have that role.
The Chargers, like the Commanders, underwent a football operations revamping in the 2024 offseason. The revamping included the hiring of Joe Ortiz as general manager in January 2024. He had been the Baltimore Ravens director of player personnel. He, late in the 2023 regular season, came up as a potential head of football operations target for the Commanders, but they, at least according to reports, didn't even interview him. How's he doing as Chargers GM?
He's doing a great job. They've gotten a lot of draft value from each of their first 2 draft classes. I mean, it's tough to beat Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey in year 1, but they got 2 5th-round corners that year, Tariq Still and Cam Hart, who are their 2 starting corners. And Tariq Still looks like I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with him from him being from Maryland. He looks like a legit, maybe not a high-end CB1, but maybe a high-end CB2 kind of player. Just great ball skills, phenomenal tackler, getting a ton of value there. This year they come back with Amari Hampton that looks great. Trey Harris is wide receiver 4, but he's doing a lot of the little things well. He's a great blocker, has come down with a couple tough catches in the first 4 games. Again, later in the 5th round, you get Aronde Gadsden, the tight end, who I mentioned earlier. He's providing a lot of value. They got Jamari Caldwell in the 3rd round, defensive tackle from Oregon. He's their probably 3rd best defensive tackle, playing a lot for them, really good run defender. So the draft value has been fantastic. I think you can maybe nitpick a little bit from a free agency standpoint, how they handled it this year. But they had like 33 rostered players after the season ended. So they had to spend the bulk of their money on retaining players, and it just wasn't like a great free agency class. So, if you, as like an outsider, observer, were like, hey man, they could have, pushed things a little bit more in free agency, I would understand that. But I think they're getting good value on their returns. Mekhi Becton has looked great. Najee Harris, before he got hurt, looked really good. Tear Tart, who they signed, looks like a fantastic defensive tackle. They traded for Elijah Molden, who's playing key snaps for them. So they're doing all the right things, but there are, groups of Chargers fans who think that they should be more aggressive in trying to upgrade the roster. And I do think that is a little bit of a fair, nitpicky criticism.
Who has final say-so on Chargers player personnel, Jim Harbaugh or Joe Ortiz?
If you listen to Jim Harbaugh, he says that it's Ortiz. I think obviously they get a lot of input from Jim Harbaugh, but he uses the Batman and Robin situation. Like that's, his words, that when it comes to the roster, Joe Ortiz is Batman and he's Robin. So I don't know with like 100% certainty if that's actually true. But they've signed a lot of like former Ravens. They've signed a lot of players that he has scouted. They've also signed a lot of players that Jim Harbaugh recruited out of high school and missed out on, or coached at Michigan and things like that. So it really does feel like a collaborative effort. But Ortiz was in Baltimore for like 20 years. He knows the Harbaughs inside and outs, and there's a long relationship. with Jim also because he was scouting that area for quite a long time from Baltimore. So if Harbaugh says it's Ortiz, but if it really was Harbaugh, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, kind of hard to see Jim Harbaugh taking a backseat to anyone on anything. Steven Haglun, co-host of the Guilty as Charged podcast, which is a thriving Chargers podcast. Steve, thanks. All the best.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, and hope for a good game on Sunday.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The Commanders franchise is 7-5 all-time against the Chargers franchise in regular season games. Washington won the first 6 games, but has lost 5 of the last 6 games. So the lone win for Washington during that stretch. A 30-24 overtime win for the Redskins over the San Diego Chargers at FedEx Field on November 3rd, 2013. Skins fullback Darrell Young had 5 carries for 12 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a game-winning 4-yard touchdown run in overtime. I love that line. 5 carries for 12 yards and 3 touchdowns. My friends, it is that time, the time to rhyme. It is time for Rhyming Keys, my keys to a Commanders win in rhyming fashion. These rhymes, they are not meant to be good, and they are not good. Trust me, these rhymes are quite bad. They are only meant to make a few points, and in fact, I have a saying for this segment, indeed a rhyme for this segment. The saying is counterintuitive, but trust me, the saying is true. The worse the rhyme, the better the time. And so let's have a good time. Here we go. Hardcore analysis combined with scheduled fun. Rhyming keys for Commanders at the Chargers. How do the Commanders win this game? We now rhyme the ways. Rhyming key number 1. This is for the Commanders defense. Find the right potion for dealing with motion. We on this podcast this week have spent a good bit of time discussing the struggles of the Commanders' defense. Among the many problems for the defense has been it getting victimized by motion. Per ESPN, no NFL team in this regular season through Week 4 had allowed more passing plays of at least 15 yards when facing motion than the Commanders had. 11. 6 of those plays occurred in the 34-27 loss at the Atlanta Falcons this past Sunday afternoon. And how about this from ESPN? The Commanders, in their 2 losses in this regular season, the 27-18 loss at the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football on September 11th and the loss at the Falcons, have allowed a whopping 515 total net yards of offense versus motion. Compare that with the Commanders having allowed just 105 total net yards of offense versus motion in the team's 2 wins in this regular season. The Commanders' defense doing well against motion is a major item in this game on Sunday. And so rhyming key number 1, this for the Commanders' defense: find the right potion for dealing with motion. I told you, these rhymes are not good. Rhyming key for Commanders at the Chargers number 2. This is for the Commanders defense: get to bustin' on Justin. The Chargers offensive line, it has significant injury problems, and the Chargers QB1, Justin Herbert, he is being pressured a lot. Herbert over the Chargers' last 2 games per True Media has been pressured on 47.4% of his dropbacks, and he over the Chargers' last 2 games has taken a staggering 26 quarterback hits. Herbert for this regular season through week 4 per Sport Radar was number 7 among all qualified NFL quarterbacks in highest pressure percentage, 27.1. But the Commanders, they for this regular season through week 4 per Sport Radar had a pressure percentage of just 18.4. The league average was 20.2. The Commanders getting pressure on Justin Herbert needs to happen. 4-man rushes, blitzes, whatever. Defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. has demonstrated an aptitude for manufacturing pressure. Do what is necessary, but get pressure on Justin Herbert. Rhyming key number 2, this for the Commanders defense: get to bustin' on Justin. And rhyming key for Commanders at the Chargers number 3. This is for whoever is the Commanders starting quarterback, presumably Jayden Daniels. If you see the juice, turn it loose. The juice, as in former Washington cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, who this past March signed with the Chargers as an unrestricted free agent. Now, he isn't starting for the Chargers, and his playing time so far this regular season has been all over the place, but when he is on the field, Jayden Daniels, assuming that he's back from his 2-game absence caused by the left knee injury, should not be shy about targeting the juice. Washington took Benjamin St-Juste in the 3rd round of the 2021 NFL Draft out of the University of Minnesota. St-Juste had a promising 2022 regular season, but he over the 2023 and 2024 regular seasons was a penalty machine, totaling 20 penalties, including 17 accepted penalties. 11 of the accepted penalties were defensive pass interference penalties. The guy has been a walking, talking DPI. Now, he has no penalties so far in this regular season, but that can change quickly. Benjamin St-Juste, the juice, as was said on Saturday Night Live many years ago: you likey the juice.
You like the juice, eh? Yeah, you know. The juice is good, eh?
Yes, we likey the juice. We likey the juice as a target for this Sunday. And so, rhyming key number 3, this for whoever is the Commander starting quarterback, presumably Jayden Daniels: if you see the juice, turn it loose. All right, it is prediction time. The consensus line per Action Network for this game as of Thursday morning was Commanders plus 2.5. I don't like that the Chargers are coming off a disappointing loss at the New York Giants this past Sunday afternoon, 21-18. But I'm taking the Commanders plus the 2.5, and I am calling for the defense to be better. Not great, but better. If the defense has any pride, the defense will be better. Final score: Commanders 28, Chargers 26. Jayden Daniels, 3 touchdown passes in his return. All right, time now to talk college football. Time now for Goldilocks. My picks for the 7 FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region: Maryland, Navy, Virginia Tech, Virginia, James Madison, Old Dominion, and Liberty. You surely have heard of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. Well, this is Goldilocks, which helps you, as the great Snoop Dogg once said, make money, money.
Make money, money, make money, money, money.
That's right, Snoop. Make money. We have arrived at week 6 of the 2025 college football season. Goldilocks coming off a bounce-back week. Goldilocks in week 5, 3-2. We'll do Goldilocks in rapid-fire fashion. And then I want to talk about 3 games in particular with the notable statistical matchups. And I want to talk about big news for Virginia Tech this week. The betting lines, and I'm using our consensus lines per Action Network as a Thursday morning. No game for Liberty this weekend. The Flames' next game is at UTEP this Wednesday night, October 8th at 8. So, 6 games to pick. Here we go. Maryland, home to Washington, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. The Terrapins plus 6.5. Give me Maryland. Navy home to Air Force, Saturday at noon in the first leg of the race for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for the 2025 season. The Midshipmen minus 12.5. Give me Navy. Number 24, Virginia at Louisville, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. The Cavaliers plus 6.5. Give me Louisville. That line screams to take Virginia. I'm going contrarian. Virginia Tech has its homecoming game, home to Wake Forest, Saturday afternoon at 1. The Hokies minus 7. Give me Wake Forest. James Madison at Georgia State, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. The Dukes minus 20.5. Give me James Madison. And Old Dominion, home to Coastal Carolina, Saturday evening at 6. The Monarchs minus 20.5. Give me Old Dominion. Big-time matchup for Maryland's defense against Washington's offense on Saturday afternoon. Maryland for this season through week 5 was number 6 in the FBS in defensive efficiency per ESPN. Washington for this season through week 5 was number 7 in the FBS in offensive efficiency per ESPN. Washington's Damon Williams Jr., he for this season through week 5 was number 9 among all qualified quarterbacks in the FBS in ESPN's total QBR 87. Virginia's Chandler Morris, by the way, was number 10, 85.7. The Terps have allowed just 43 points through 4 games, fewest points allowed by the Terps through 4 games in a season since 2013. But how is the Terrapins defense going to do against Damon Williams and the rest of the Huskies offense? And yes, Washington did lose at home to then number 1 Ohio State 24-6 last Saturday. But still, Washington's offense is very capable. This game, another test for Maryland true freshman quarterback Malik Washington, who overall is doing well. And this game is a chance for the Terps, with Mike Locksley as head coach, finally to win a game coming off a bye. Maryland on December 4th, 2018, announced the hiring of Mike Locksley as head coach. The Terps with Locksley as head coach are 0-9 in games after a bye week. Yes, 0-9. During Locksley's press conference this past Tuesday, had this back and forth between Terps football insider Gene Wong of the Washington Post and Locksley.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Gene, what's up?
Have you kind of re-examined the way you guys handle bye weeks, given that the results haven't been...
Man, Dustin told me that. Dustin, what is our bye week record? Dustin literally said it.
0-9.
0-9.
Yes.
I ain't been here 9 years, have I?
9 times.
Oh,
no, 9 games.
Was that funny? No. So, no, I mean, we evaluate everything we do, Gene. That's a great question. Dustin literally just said, you'll probably get asked that. And I said, well, what is my record after buys? Because, we usually practice how we have to. And I grew up in an era where the bye week is used kind of like a prize fighter. When in between rounds, he sits on the stool. His eyes are looking across at his opponent. He's getting instruction from his coaches. He's getting recovery from his coaches. He's getting a little rest. But we did things a little bit differently. We actually, because of our depth, we didn't beat them up. I have a tendency during bye weeks to be really, really physical, because that's what I grew up in under the Nick Saban approach, where you're young players, you be real physical. We just can't afford to do that. So we condensed our practice opportunity time, but we're physical. We still had shells and thudded and did some good things, but really looked at it as an opportunity to get some guys healthy while also focusing on things we haven't done well. And what I've learned about this young team is that most of the time when we've emphasized something to them, they've come back and done pretty well at it. So we wanted to find what are some of the small, detailed things of the fundamentals of the game that we needed to improve upon for each player, and then gear it toward that. We did a lot more individual. I think we had 30-minute individual period because of us wanting to get better with the fundamental part of it of a young team.
Man, the Terps with Mike Locksley as head coach 0-9 in games after a bye week. Some interesting statistical matchups in some of these other games. And Navy home to Air Force Saturday at noon. Navy for this season through week 5 was number 25 in the FBS in offensive efficiency per ESPN. Air Force for this season through week 5 was number 136 in the FBS, dead last in the FBS in defensive efficiency per ESPN. Is this a game in which the midshipmen's offense is going to feast? And number 24, Virginia at Louisville, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. UVA for this season through week 5 was number 13 in the FBS in offensive efficiency per ESPN. Louisville for this season through week 5 was number 17 in the FBS in defensive efficiency per ESPN. And then there's this, and this may be the biggest news item in college football in terms of the teams of the Mid-Atlantic region this week. During a special online meeting held this past Tuesday, the Virginia Tech Board of Visitors approved a budget plan that features a $229 million planned investment in athletics over 4 years. The plan, quote, positions the university to compete with top athletic programs in the Atlantic Coast Conference, end quote. And, quote, this investment plan approved by the board will allow the university to modernize its athletic operations to be competitive in a new, more professional environment. Specifically, the plan will support a new front office for football to manage recruiting, talent development, and operations, end quote. This is game-changing news for Virginia Tech football. College football in this era of the NCAA transfer portal and NIL is about money like never before. Finally, the Hokies are swimming in deeper financial waters. Now, of course, smart decisions need to be made with that money, but the money is becoming available. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Monday show, episode 1170. We'll have a lot for you on the Commanders. In-depth reaction to and analysis of their game at the Los Angeles Chargers this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Also on Monday show, I'll talk college football as we on Saturday have games for 6 of the 7 FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
You like the juice, eh?
Yeah, you know.
The juice is good, eh?
Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one. Clorox Toilet Wand, it's all in one.
Hey, what does all in one mean?
The caddy, the wand, the preloaded pad. There's a cleaner in there, inside the pad.
So Clorox Toilet Wand is all I need to clean a toilet?
You don't need a bottle of solution to get into this toilet revolution. Clorox, clean feels good.
Use as directed.